What's up, everybody? Nick Whale and Alex Barutha. We're back with you. It is NBA All-Star Week here on the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast, presented by Edge Boost. We're also presented by Pool Genius. We'll tell you about both of those fantastic sponsors later in the show. Got a fun show coming your way. We're back on our normal schedule. Alex, I'm back from Super Bowl coverage in New Orleans. Kind of a tough week to be away from the NBA. There was a lot of NBA chatter, however, going on Media Row at the Super Bowl. I'll tell you that there was a lot of local radio stations are there, including there was a local Dallas station, presumably there to talk about the Super Bowl. And, making my rounds, and every time I walked past that table, it just felt like somebody was delivering a eulogy, or there was a funeral going on. Like, guys are doing live radio with their head in their hands. Like, we've all seen the videos on Twitter. It's been, a week now, the protests outside the arena. But that showed through in New Orleans, no question about it.
It's not surprising, and that's been basically through this whole thing. That's been my main takeaway. Is like, if you're a Mavericks fan, like it's just devastating. Even if you work around the team, if you work for a Dallas radio station covering the team, it's like you can't even believe this happened.
Yeah, so let's talk a little Dallas. I'm not gonna give my reaction to the Luka trade. That's expired at this point. Yeah, I'm surprised. We'll say that. I'm still surprised. Should see Luka make his debut tonight, by the way. Lakers are home for the Utah Jazz. This is like attempt number 3 of ESPN to broadcast his debut. And he was just moved from questionable to probable. So the expectation is that Luka should be out there. We'll talk momentarily about the Lakers situation at center. I actually just read a great piece by Sam Vecini and Jovan Buha talking through the options. It's pretty bleak. They were talking about maybe having to pull some like guys out of the Australian league to potentially fill in. But we'll talk about what that means fantasy wise. But Mavs are in action tonight as well. They're home against Sacramento. Full Anthony Davis experience on Saturday in his return game, or debut game, I should say, against Houston. Has like the best first quarter, maybe the best first half of his career. It was one of those games where you're like, why don't you do this every night, man? I mean, it was a dominant Anthony Davis performance. And then he gets hurt, and it's still kind of up in the air. But as of right now, it sounds like he's going to miss. He's out through at least the All-Star break, and could miss some time on the other side of that.
Yeah, that fresh trade energy hits some guys very differently. I was watching Zach LaVine's Kings debut the other, I don't know how many days ago that was, almost a week ago, and he was moving at like 1.25 speed. It was kind of incredible to see, even though he didn't have that great of a game. He was just like, it was unreal. But yeah, I mean, just the tragic irony of, hey, we got to move off of Luka Doncic because he's fat and he's going to get hurt all the time. And then you bring in this injury prone guy, and it's like, well, I mean, it'll probably be fine. He's got that dog in him. And then he just pulls his groin immediately and is out just indefinitely now.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because, going into the game, Nico Harrison is in witness protection. They're like worried about a legit riot. And then Davis comes out and has this incredible first 5 minutes, incredible first quarter. And like you watch the clips from that game, like that felt like almost like a playoff environment. Like I think the crowd went from, all right, we're ready to kill Nico Harrison, to like, all right, this is actually working out okay. Anthony Davis, he's a pretty good player. And then it all, of course, comes crashing down. And now I think we're back to square one of like, why did we trade for the injury prone guy? I did love Nico Harrison saying that, they wanted somebody who better aligns with Kyrie's timeline. One of the more insane statements I've ever heard. It's like, we need an older guy. We want to pair an older guy with an older guy. I've never really seen that logic employed before. I guess unless you're trading like a super young player, but when the other guy is a like 5-time first team All NBA guy and he's 25 in Luka Doncic, that argument didn't hold a lot of water to me. What I've been saying all along, and I was able to talk about this on a couple outlets last week, is like I in some ways applaud the boldness of the Mavericks for putting their foot in the ground. And like, if they truly believe Luka Doncic, like if it's that bad behind the scenes, and like I'm inclined to believe it is if they traded him, if it's that bad, like, okay, good on you for making that decision. You don't want to take this too far down the road, but you got to open it up for deals. Anthony Davis, maybe Anthony Davis was the best individual player you can get, maybe, but let other teams at least submit offers, right? I mean, like if Dallas called the Milwaukee Bucks and said Luka for Giannis, I think the Bucks say no for a lot of reasons, but they would at least have that conversation. Like it's on the table that you could have gotten Giannis.
I think so. Who knows whether it's true or not, but the saying essentially like the guy we wanted was Anthony Davis. or Giannis, or there was the secret second player that they said they called, right? And presumably it was the Bucks, or maybe I don't know who else it was, Tatum or whatever.
Right.
And but even if the only guy that you want back in your trade is Anthony Davis, why would you just admit that? Like, where is the gamesmanship of just pretending like there maybe are some other trades you would entertain to get as much possible back from the Lakers,
right,
and maybe even be able to bring a third team in to get more assets, because you get, both teams can send guys out.
100%.
Yeah.
You said it well. I mean, if we want to believe Nico Harrison that they were laser focused on Anthony Davis, which it appears they were, for whatever reason. And even if you want to set aside the idea of bringing in a third team, which I think is a great point by you, we see it all the time. How do you not end up with Reaves? How do you not end up with the other first round pick that the Lakers eventually tried to trade for Mark Williams? We'll talk about that momentarily. Swaps, I mean, that was kind of the crazier part to me. It's like, all right, like if we're making all these concessions and you're just going to deal with the Lakers, how do you not even get the best deal from the Lakers? Like, the Lakers could have included Austin Reaves and another pick in that deal, and I still think that would be a great deal for the Lakers. It's Luka.
Yeah, and the Lakers could have even, then you could get into bigger negotiations. It's like, well, for trading AD, we need a center. Hey, could we get Gafford or Lively, from you in this deal?
Right.
And then again, then you're maybe bringing a third team in, or you're guaranteeing yourself Austin Reaves by giving them either Daniel Gafford or Derek Lively.
Yeah. All right, so the Lakers side of things here, they got Luka. That's great. He should debut tonight. They have one center on the roster. It is Jaxson Hayes, who is kind of having a just happy to be there type of season. This is a vintage accidentally got important at work situation for him. He's going to be very important. So as far as the Mark Williams trade goes, like this cuts both ways, because I didn't love the trade as far as what they gave up, the injury risk that is Mark Williams, the Knecht piece, whatever, like you're going to have to include that no matter what. We'll see if he ends up being a great player or not. I would be very surprised if Dalton Knecht is like the next Austin Reaves. I think he could be a very good role player, but like that part of it, whatever, you got to give something up to get something. But incurring that kind of injury risk, that was the big question mark. And of course, including your other tradable pick. Now the Lakers, the trade has been walked back. So, in some ways it's like, all right, now we have these assets back, but the trade deadline is also passed. What can they do here? I mean, Alex Len is off the market. Mo Bamba is sitting out there. Like, legitimately, these are the options that we're talking about. They're going to be playing the buyout market. The buyout market has not been super fruitful so far. Obviously, you can't make any other trades. Hassan Whiteside is out there. I mean, we're looking at a ragtag group here, and the Lakers are going to essentially have to play small ball. And there are going to be certain matchups where, on paper, like if they play Dallas, for instance, with Davis and Gafford and Lively, or who guards Nikola Jokic.
But something that's been interesting about this is the Lakers have played really well lately, essentially since Jared Vanderbilt came back.
Yeah.
And Dorian Finney-Smith, I think, has that was a great addition. Moving off of D'Lo to get him, I think, has really bolstered their defense. And like you mentioned, you only have two guys with real size, which is Jaxson Hayes and then Christian Koloko, who has given them has technically played for them and given them some minutes.
He's on an NBA roster.
Yeah, so I think your point's right, which is there are certain matchups, unfortunately, in the playoffs, Jokic, AD, whoever, where you do need that veteran defensive real presence to deal with those guys. But in 80% of the matchups in the NBA, I think you can get by with Jaxson Hayes and Koloko at center, and then playing some small ball, because Finney-Smith and Hachimura are big enough bodies. But like you said, what are they going to do in the buyout market? There's essentially nobody. The way the CBA works now, there's nobody to sign, really.
No, and they're restricted. I think anybody who makes above, what is it, like the veteran mid-level who's bought out, they're not able to sign that player, which there's not even that many guys that fit the criteria. I mean, the bottom line is they're going to be scraping the bottom of the barrel here. I think they probably do. I mean, Mo Bamba's played for the Lakers. They probably bring him back. There is some familiarity there. He's got size, at least. He's not good, but he's got size. He's athletic. I mean, I really think you're just looking for somebody with some sort of defensive presence. Like the article I was reading about this, they're talking about like, well, they want somebody who can space. It's like, you don't get to be picky here. Like you literally need someone who is 7 feet tall and who can like somewhat passably guard the other star centers in the Western Conference. I think anything you're getting offensively would just be, I would just view that as a bonus, So I think you have to view this as somebody who, hopefully can be just an average defender where, it's not Jokic just walking into 40 and 15 against you every night in a playoff series. We'll get to all the questions in the chat later in the show. Got some good ones stacking up here. Matt said he's excited to see Luka to Hayes lob passes. There will be plenty of those. I want to talk some waiver wire, Alex, but first I want to finish out on this trade. If you're holding LeBron or you're holding Luka or even Austin Reaves, obviously you're not dropping any of these guys, but would you be, are you worried at all about this combination of Luka and LeBron? Is it going to be clunky? Is there a slightly higher statistical ceiling for all three of these guys now?
I think I would be most worried about Reaves because LeBron and Luka, I think, are just going to do so much of the playmaking. But it could maybe lead to more efficiency from Reaves, just more three-point shooting. I think his assists are going to take the main hit. I think that's going to be the main knock to Reaves' game. But you have to remember, it's not, I mean, Anthony Davis was a high-usage player. He was putting up 25, 30 points. Wasn't handing out that many dimes, but he was still taking a lot of shots. So, replacing Anthony Davis with Luka Doncic, it's not as if, like, the there's only one ball theory is not as prominent as if they had just added Luka Doncic to this roster that already had Anthony Davis on it.
Yeah, very true. Very true. I think it is going to be clunky early on. I would not be surprised if the Lakers come out and look like really bad tonight. We've seen LeBron, struggle to gel with other star players. You think back that initial Heat team was like 500 through 20 games.
Yeah,
I think there will be a feeling out process for sure. Both LeBron and Luka tend to be streaky 3-point shooters, guys who are more comfortable pulling up from three than they are in catch and shoot situations. So very interested to see how that balance works out. But I actually think this will be okay for Reaves. I think you're right. The assists are going to plummet. Probably no question about that. But I think he could pretty seamlessly, he worked well off of LeBron and Davis. I think he can work well off of Luka and LeBron as well. And I mean, Jaxson Hayes absolutely has to be added for the time being. He is literally the only big man available for the LA Lakers. Other additions, anybody you were rushing out to grab this weekend on waivers?
And not as many in my teams, partially just because of the particular leagues I was in.
Yeah.
But I think Buzelis is someone who's going to profit down the line with Levine, and I know with the Nets, it's kind of unclear. Like, should we add Keon Johnson because the Nets did nothing at the deadline?
Bizarre.
Like, are those guys going to sit? So, oddly, I don't think there were as many must-add players as you would think, given the amount of movement at the deadline.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I know Aaron Wiggins was a popular one. I tried to get him, did not get him in a couple of leagues. He was a big pickup in the stake league. Started 5 games in a row for OKC. Had the 41-point game, a little bit ago earlier this month, but averaging 23 per game over his last 5. A lot of people ran out and grabbed Knecht. Our guy Ken Kreitz paid $31 for him, almost a third of the old budget on Dalton Knecht. He's going to play. I think he's going to play, but I don't see him having like significantly more upside now than he did earlier in the year. I think especially with bringing in Luka, it's like you're more defensive focused than ever. I think with those guys that you're playing at the 3 and the 4, I think we see more Vanderbilt, we see more Finney Smith. So I was not super interested in him. Other claims in our 16-team league: Max Struth, Jonathan Mobo, Moses Moody, Gigi Jackson, Niang. Quentin Grimes is somebody I really wanted to get, and Max Christie being the other one.
Yeah, I think Christie's definitely going to benefit from AD being out. But at the same time, when he was with the Lakers, he was not. A lot of his fantasy value was tied into like, is this guy making his threes and shooting efficiently? Yeah. And he's had a nice first 3 games with the Mavericks, but he is also, what is this, 8 for 12, 8 for 11 from 3 or something? Like, he's shooting 67% from 3 in his first 3 games with Dallas. So if you start projecting him for regression, his averages are probably going to look more like 14 points a game, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, which is fine.
Yeah.
And I think Grimes is someone who I think, could have a really strong second half of the season here with Philly, just because I think he's probably locked into like 30 minutes a game. But I don't think he can really hit his upside unless George and Embiid are missing time, because if they're not, then he's the fourth option. And then how different was that from his time in Dallas?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, also worth noting that the Mavs, PJ Washington has missed most of the last 3 games in which Christie has played. Obviously, Caleb Martin, who they traded for, has not played. Should be back shortly after the All-Star break. I think there's still a nice window here for Christie. I don't know that the player he's been these last 3 games is just what I would expect going forward. But at this point in the year, especially if you're in a 14, 16 team league, you got to take the bait, I think, on somebody like that and see if it's real, especially heading into the All-Star break. What about Vassell?
Yes. I'm all in on Vassell. Has started the past 2 games, but really like the minutes have ramped up the past 5. And past 5 games, 16 points, 4 rebounds, 1.8 blocks. And I think, as you and I have talked about, like the fact that he's shooting well this season, he's a 36% 3-point shooter, and he was not supposed to be, that was his weakness, right? The fact that he's going to be hitting 3 somewhat at volume and that he can get you blocks, and his shooting efficiency is going to come down. He's shooting 61% during this stretch, but we saw the talent that he has as just like a bucket getter in Summer League. And I think this team clearly needs a forward who can play offense, because that player is not Patrick Williams. And then otherwise they're starting 4 point guards. So I'm all in on Vassell. Yeah.
All right, before we hit some ad reads and get to the chat, Brandon Ingram landing in Toronto. Obviously, has not played yet. Still unclear when we'll see Brandon Ingram. He's got 2 chances to play before the All-Star break. They're off tonight, and then they play Tuesday at Philly, Wednesday home against the Cavs. I don't hate this move necessarily by Toronto, but the implication is that you got to re-sign Brandon Ingram. They've put together a solid roster, but also a roster that feels like it has a pretty decent ceiling. I like name value alone. Pirtle, Barnes, Ingram, Barrett, Quickly, pretty solid starting 5. It's kind of one of those like, all right, what are you playing for here? Is the goal to get the 6th seed every single year? I mean, if you're assuming Scotty Barnes takes another leap, then maybe this makes more sense. But what were your thoughts on that deal as far as what they gave up to get Ingram, and then the implication that they'll at least make a hard attempt to re-sign him?
Reminded me, I don't remember what show I said this on, reminded me a little bit of the Siakam deal, where it's like, do you make this trade if you are unsure whether Ingram is going to resign? And then part of me thought it would be weird if Ingram was like, yeah, I'm 100% like, let's do long-term in Toronto, with the squad. So I think if they know that Ingram is signing long-term, that what they gave up is fine. Your question about what are they doing here, also fair, because we talked about timelines with Dallas. Ingram is like 3-4 years older than the rest of these guys. I think Toronto probably has, like, when Quickly, Barrett, and Barnes play, when they have their guys, they've played well, and especially at home. And so I think their logic is like, okay, we're bad this year. Getting Ingram this year is not really going to help us. We're still going to end up with a good pick in theory. Then next year we can just like go for it because we have all of our guys. And in the Eastern Conference, we probably feel like we can be maybe even like a 4 seed. Like, why can't we be the Indiana Pacers with this roster? I think is probably their thought.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, tell you about Edge Boost, tell you about Pool Genius. So Edge Boost, if you ever had your debit card decline or you had to call your bank at 3 a.m. in Vegas, well, hopefully not, but Edge Boost is the first consumer-facing online bank dedicated to the gaming industry. There are a ton of benefits to using Edge Boost, $250K per day in debit deposits, unlimited withdrawals, cashback for sports betting, DFS, sweeps, 100% approval for all gaming activity, financial segmentation for discretion and responsible gaming. It's compatible today for prediction markets, iCasino, DFS, sports betting, lottery, brick and mortar casinos, horse racing, sweeps, everything. No transaction reviews, no account freezes. Go to edgeboost.bet today and use our promo code ROTOPOD, ROTOPOD. That's promo code ROTOPOD at edgeboost.bet. We're also brought to you by Pool Genius. You want to win more in your golf, March Madness, or football pools? Pool Genius gives you data-driven picks and strategies to outsmart the competition. With over a decade of analytics and historical data, Pool Genius is the only site dedicated exclusively to helping people win sports pools. With Pool Genius, users win 3 times more often than expected. RotoWire listeners get exclusive offers over at Pool Genius. Visit poolgenius.com/RotoWire for up to 55% off or to start a 4-day free trial. That's poolgenius.com/RotoWire. All right, over to the chat we go. And, we've talked a lot of Mark Williams here. I got a couple of good ones involving him. Matt says, Diabate, is his value tanked after the Mark Williams trade fell apart? Then another question here. Mark Williams' designation for today is not with team. Is there any chance the Hornets just don't play him for the rest of the season?
I am wondering about that.
Well, medical red flags, right? I mean,
although apparently only on the Lakers side, makes me wonder what's going on. Honestly, this makes me more wonder what's going on with the Charlotte medical staff after there was the whole doubtful situation with Mark Williams last year where he was listed doubtful for 45 games and LaMelo's constant doubtful gate, LaMelo with the ankle stuff. And then, the Lakers staff brings him in and they're like, this guy's foot's broken. Like he's playing on a broken foot. And, and so it is possible. Obviously bad vibes bringing Mark Williams back. And I think maybe at this point you can just pretty easily justify, upon second look, it appears Mark Williams' foot is worse than we thought. And we have 13 wins, so Diabate is going to start for us. So I think you're fine adding Diabate. Like if you added Diabate, I would not drop him immediately based on this Mark Williams returning news.
Yeah, I mean, it's reasonable to think that Mark Williams might not play this week, just given the hecticness of all this. So you might just get kind of this pre-All-Star week out of Diabate, and then we'll get a little more clarity during the break. I mean, there's reporting from, I think it was Dave McMenamin, who said that, Charlotte approached the Lakers about the Mark Williams trade. This feels like Charlotte knew something, and it's like trying to get into a bar with a fake ID, and they're like, let's just try it. Let's see what the medical staff says. Like maybe they'll clear him. I don't know. We'll find out. So they were probably prepared for this possibility. And maybe the Lakers also had some sort of buyer's regret, and they were just like, well, yeah, maybe we did give up too much, and we're just gonna fail them. I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but either way, I do think. I think the Lakers were ultimately okay with this deal because of where they're left now with no centers, and I don't think they just failed him to fail him. But I think there's a pretty good chance Charlotte knew something was going on. But I think you broke that down well as far as Diabate is concerned. P Dub says, good afternoon, guys. 10-team 9-cat league. Do I move on from Tari Eason to add Jose Alvarado?
That is probably fine. In my opinion, that's completely category specific though. Because I think Alvarado is going to be doing what he's been doing there for the rest of the year, given that DeJounte Murray's out for the year. But at the end of the day, Alvarado is all, he's all assists and steals and sometimes. Whoa, I accidentally dropped out of the podcast there.
Good. Classic fake out.
It's all category based.
Yeah. I mean, Tari Eason gives you steals as well. So I would say it kind of depends how much you need the assist. I think you are right that this is, as long as Alvarado stays healthy, this should be fairly sustainable. I mean, obviously no Murray the rest of the year. And, CJ McCollum is also out for personal reasons this week. So if we're talking like super short term here, I think for this week, I would go Alvarado. In a 10-team league, maybe you're dropping in and adding a little bit more than you would in a deeper format. House of Sneakerhead says, is Andrew Wiggins worth an ad? Possibly over McDaniels or John Collins?
Well, I don't know about you. I have my concerns that John Collins will get the mysterious back injury towards the end of the year.
We'll be talking about that on the pod tomorrow with Brandon, some shutdown candidates. So that's the first thing I would mention. Yes.
Okay. And then McDaniels has been playing really well. So I would be fine adding him. You have to be a little bit concerned that like Julius Randle and DiVincenzo will come back around the same time, like sometime after the All-Star break. And then McDaniels goes back to averaging like 9 points a game. So I think your safest ad is probably Wiggins.
I think so. Yeah, I mean McDaniels has been a hoss lately.
He's been really good.
This Randall injury has really supercharged things. Last 10 games, 17 points, 8 boards, 2.5 assists, 1.7 steals, 1.1 blocks, and still shooting a decent amount of threes. So yeah, I still think long term, post All-Star break, Wiggins is probably the guy. Collins, I would avoid the Jazz at all costs if I can. All right, John Soraki says, who do you consider more valuable for the second half of the season in an 8-cat league head-to-head? Vassell, Coulibaly, or Isaiah Collier? Good options here.
I think, well, Coulibaly, with Washington in the situation that they're in, he's been playing really well lately. Past 5 games, 17 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals. And the shooting is like mostly sustainable on that. So I would actually, I think Coulibaly has the most well-rounded, just pure upside. Collier is just a great assists ad. He's a fantastic passer. And Buzelis, if you're like desperate for the blocks, I think is an option. But all in all, I would say Coulibaly.
I think so too. I think I would go Coulibaly, Collier, Buzelis. I think Buzelis he might look the most impressive on some nights of these three, but I think there might be a little bit of a disconnect in terms of that versus night to night fantasy value. And like you said, with Collier, I mean, field goal percentage has actually been solid lately. He's not doing anything from three, but he's not taking enough to tank his field goal percentage. Like you look at the last month, 9 assists per game, 11 points, 4 rebounds, 45% from the field. I wouldn't necessarily worry about him as a shutdown guy. They kind of seem to be embracing him as one of the tank commanders. I would worry about Collins, Markkanen, even Jordan Clarkson being an older guy. So yeah, I think Coulibaly, Collier, Buzelis in that order. All right, let's see what else we got here. What do I do if I have Giannis and AD? Do you think they'll be back before the fantasy playoffs? I think so.
Giannis, yeah. It seems like Giannis is just going to come back after the All-Star break and be fine, right?
Yeah, I think so. AD, who knows? I wonder if did they rush him back a little bit to make his debut before the All-Star break? Specifically in that home game, maybe. With AD, it's just you're always going to wonder about health, especially when there is something lingering. But as far as Giannis goes, this went from I thought it was just management to okay, he definitely did kind of retweak that calf, but I think they're giving him the All-Star break, probably giving him an extra few days, and he'll be good to go.
I think the Giannis thing is totally precautionary. The AD is tough because obviously, in theory, you want to be cautious with him, but Dallas is not. I mean, they're 28 and 25 right now, right? Sacramento they're in the 8th seed. Sacramento is a game and a half behind them in the 9. So is Phoenix in the 10, and then in the 11, Golden State, all 1.5 games behind Dallas. I mean, if you are Dallas, you are risking like straight up not making the playoffs if you don't bring Anthony Davis back.
Yeah.
And just, I mean, that's fine. And like that can't be helped. Luka got hurt and then AD got hurt, but just the optics of it, my God, you know what I mean? It's just, so I don't know. You gotta be a little worried if you have AD.
Would you rather have Goga Bitadze or Aaron Gordon, 12-team 9-cat league?
Interesting. Bitadze, we've seen the ceiling games out of him, and they've just gone away because Wendell Carter Jr. has played better, and Banchero and Wagner coming back has just taken some usage away from him. So I think I would rather have Gordon. And Gordon is not going to be. Obviously he has his down games as well, but he's so integral to what Denver is doing, and I would have a hard time letting him go,
Mm-hmm. All right, I have to drop one of Malik Beasley, Devin Vassell, and Jaden McDaniels. Who would you choose?
I would not drop Vassell. I mean, he's in theory their essentially third scoring option on offense, and San Antonio. So that's kind of a no drop for me, even if his numbers decrease a little bit. Beasley versus McDaniels is tough because McDaniels is giving you way more of everything that's not threes. So I don't know. What do you think? I mean, that's probably just if you need threes or not.
Yeah, 100% depends on categories here. If you need threes, I think it has to be Beasley because we're not just talking about like, oh, he gives you like two and a half threes per game. Like he is continuing to hit an insane amount of threes just about every single night. The splash games have been there. I'm trying to find where he ranks in terms of total made threes this year. Second in the NBA, behind only Anthony Edwards. So he has been crazy valuable. I'm just pulling his last 10 games, 4.8 made threes per game, 46% from beyond the arc. We've been saying all year, like, yeah, it's going to regress. He's basically shooting the same percentage as last year. He's just taking twice as many threes as he was in Milwaukee. Now you're getting almost no rebounds, almost no assists. Steals have actually, he's giving you like a steal, 1.3 steals per game. That's fine. Obviously, you're not getting blocks. So totally depends if you need to make up ground in the defensive categories. McDaniels has been a pretty good rebounder as well. But look, if I had a chance to swap those two in one of the leagues I'm in, I would do it because I need to make up ground in threes. And you're not going to find anybody on the waiver wire who's giving you that level of volume. JJ Styles says, any chance Middleton could play out the year in Washington and have some rest of season value? Would you drop Sochan or D'Lo for him?
Yeah, well, first of all, I have D'Lo in our 16 team league, and any given week, I'm like, what do I do with this guy? Because is he even going to play some of these games? I mean, I have the same questions about D'Lo as Middleton. So you have this guy on your roster. It's confusing. And Sochan just has not been playing the minutes that you want him to play. And I thought he was going to get better after they came back from Paris. And it really hasn't. I mean, since they've been back in America, he's 22 minutes a game and no real, it's not going up consistently or anything like that. I don't know. I mean, what do you think? I think Middleton will probably play, but I don't think it'll be every night. I mean, I think they'll give him plenty of rest days, and it seems like they just want him to be a veteran presence more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, is there a chance he gets bought out? Maybe. I don't. It's possible. There would be some interest there, but I think the teams that would have interest would be in the same situation that Milwaukee was in and be like, all right, we got to be cautious with you. Maybe he's coming off the bench. I think if you're in a daily league, maybe taking a flyer on Middleton makes sense. But much like you mentioned with D'Angelo Russell, on a 4-game week, how many times is Khris Middleton going to be playing all 4 of those games? Washington clearly has no interest in winning. He can be that mentor without playing heavy minutes. I don't know. I'm not super optimistic on that. We're talking about Sochan and D'Lo, so it's not like you're dropping anybody like massively productive, but I think I would chance it on those two guys, to be honest. I don't foresee like a Khris Middleton revenge, final 30 games coming.
Revenge tour, Khris Middleton.
Yeah, that's possible. All right. What would you think of Grimes and Bol Bol as 14-team 9-cat ads? Grimes I'm in on.
Yeah, we talked about Grimes earlier. I don't mind it. I just would temper your expectations given that he's 4th in the offensive pecking order when everybody's healthy. Bol Bol, I mean, I guess the thing is, so for context, Bol Bol has played the last 2 games, 24 minutes and 33 minutes, and had some very Bol Bol-esque, very nice performances, just racking up numbers. But those 2 games, Beal was out, both of them. Grayson Allen was out in another one, and Durant's been out the past 3 games. So I assume those guys are coming back. They're definitely going to be back after the All-Star break, but it seems like Durant's coming back tomorrow. So I would not add Bol Bol.
Yep, I'm with you. I think there's a reason Bol Bol played and has, prior to that had played more than 10 minutes twice the entire season. All right. Would you trade Alex Sarr and Jeremy Sochan for DeAndre Ayton?
Dominating, baby. I don't think I would because, and look, Ayton's been having some good games lately. I mean, I don't. There's really no way to beat around the bush there, but I still believe ultimately that when Alex Sarr is healthy, he's been out for a long time, but he should be back after the break. It seems like, I mean, based because he's been day to day, that he could go on a really, really nice run. And now that the Wizards have cleared out the roster for him, and I would still be worried about the Blazers giving Ayton those rest days down the stretch, and I don't think that'll happen for Ayton, or excuse me, for Sarr.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Portland's played so well lately. It kind of feels like they're having somewhat of a resurgence. I mean, they're coming
for Dallas' spot, baby.
they're 3.5 out of the 10 spot. I don't know, man. But no, you're right. I think if they do regress and all of a sudden they're 8 games out of the 10th spot with 20 to play, then maybe you do run into some of those rest issues. All right. Drop one of Okongwu, Max Christie, Ausar Thompson, Chris Paul.
I would not drop Okongwu. The other ones, I don't know if there's a great answer here because they're all giving you essentially like all these guys are giving you completely different stuff. I mean, are there 3 less similar players in the NBA? Max Christie, Ausar Thompson, and Chris Paul. So I would drop one of those 3. We talked about Christie earlier, just she's shooting out of his mind right now. I guess 3 games with Dallas. I think what Sarr has been doing, if you're worried about is that sustainable, I think what he's been doing lately is sustainable. I mean, just basically like the past 10 games, 15 games, whatever you want to say, as long as Jaden Ivey's essentially been out. Chris Paul, he's still playing like high 20s minutes since Fox got there, and the assists haven't been too bad, but I would probably drop Paul or Christie, but these guys aren't auto drops for me,
No. I mean, it depends who you're trying to pick up, I guess. These all 4 might be better options than whoever you want to grab. But yeah, I'm with you. I think Paul and Christie would be the 2. Like, if Christie gave you what Ausar has been giving you for the last month, the rest of the year, like I think you'd be happy with that. Now, the big difference, of course, is Ausar takes 0 threes, and Christie should give you some threes. So it depends how much you value that. All right, good jumping off point here for the Atlanta Hawks. Vit Krejci, is he an ad in a 14-team 9-cat league? I think he is, and I think you got to think about Niang as well.
You got to think about it. We recommended him as an ad, and then he had like the worst stretch of his season. The other week, he was like our waiver wire guy, and then he scored like 6 points and 5 points. But his past 2 games, and honestly, his past 4 games have been pretty solid. I think you can add in a 14-team league. I would add Krejci. Just because I want to see how this rotation settles out, and we know that there was a lot of trust in Krejci before he had a couple of bad games and before the trade deadline and all this stuff. So I think he's a fine speculative ad.
All right, Mr. C says he's got a 2-parter. 1, thoughts on Paul George going forward. 2, would you trade Bradley Beal for him?
Paul George has been just really underwhelming. I think to say the least. Now, who would I rather want between him and Bradley Beal? Beal's been more consistent lately, but honestly, if you look at the whole season, we're kind of talking about the same thing here. And I gotta be honest, I would prefer Paul George because I think we know the ceiling is higher. It's kind of my answer.
Yeah. This is a tough one. I would give a slight vote in support of Paul George. I mean, both have missed time. Beal seems to like more consistently miss time, I guess, where it's like every single day he's questionable and you just never know. And you hope that, you hope that Paul George is maybe past, more of the severe injury issues. But I mean, there's motivation on both sides here. Like both teams are in similar situations. Like they need to play their way in. There's going to be a push. I would slightly lean George too, but I don't envy anybody who has to make that decision. Here's a good concept question from Ant. He says, we have one wild card category in our league. Usually it's ejections, flagrants, techs. I find these unfair. What are your thoughts? I don't play in any leagues that involve these, unfortunately.
I think in a money league, I would be like, hey, can we not do this? Unless if it's like a $5 league, it's whatever. I actually think that's fun, but if you're talking about you're putting up real money, wagering, whether you win or lose this league, I think I would probably not do that.
I need to know, do these categories hurt you or help you? Like, does having Draymond Green, is it a bonus if he gets a bunch of texts, or are those negative points? I don't know. I'm totally open to this. Very open to it. We don't have that many ejections, so I guess it depends how many points those would be worth. Texts, flagrants, personal fouls would be interesting.
I forget who, and so I apologize. There are someone on Twitter plays in a league that's like a worst bad fantasy league, as in like what's the lineup that you can put together that produces the worst fantasy outcome. And I think it might be categories based, but there's probably a minutes minimum and all that stuff. Right. I don't remember the exact outcome, but to me, that would be fun.
Kuzma's got to be the number 1 overall player.
Right, Kuzma.
All right. Hooks and Hoops says, would you trade LaMelo for Cat? Both are injury risks, but I'm just wondering who you feel is a safer bet.
Would you trade LaMelo for Cat? Yeah, I would. The Cat, he's got that chip, that bone chip in his thumb. That's a good, fair enough concern, and I know he hasn't played that well lately. I think that I would rather bet on him having a better post All-Star break end to his season than LaMelo, who, has been more of an injury risk throughout his career. Hornets are not playing well. We know how Thibodeau treats his starters in terms of playing them a ton of minutes, and Cat's been amazing, man. I mean, Cat, honestly, he's putting up MVP numbers, honestly.
Yeah, I'd take Cat as well. I think you think of LaMelo as having maybe more injury issues than Cat, but it's been close. I mean, Cat played 29 games a couple years ago, but played 62 last year. He hasn't missed too much time this year. And I mean, Tibbs does run his guys into the ground, but Cat he's playing 34 and a half minutes, which is a lot, but not crazy. He's had seasons where he's been 2-3 minutes above that earlier in his career. So I would go Cat as well. I think he's slightly safer. All right, we got a trade question here. I traded Kevin Durant, Jamal Murray, and Devin Vassell for Nikola Jokic. Then I traded Paul George and D'Lo for Franz Wagner. Was this too much? So in summation, Durant, Murray, Vassell, Paul George, D'Angelo Russell for Jokic and Franz.
The shallower this league is, the more I like it. I will put it that way. Because, in a shallow league, you want a top-heavy roster. In a deeper league, you want some depth. But there's probably, I don't know. How do you feel? I feel like they're equal 12-team points league. I think you're probably going to be able to string together enough. Like, you got to be really active streaming. But this is the best time of the year to stream, basically after the All-Star break. So I don't mind this, actually. I don't mind it.
All right, so we talked a little bit about Goga. OB Thompson says, is Goga a drop in 9-cat leagues? Depends on the depth of the league, but I think it's certainly defensible to drop him. And then he asks, in addition to Isaiah Collier, is there another stash potentially in Utah? So we're talking Bryce Sensabaugh, or we're talking maybe Kyle Filipowski. Either of those names appeal to you?
Sensabaugh is essentially like only threes, and he has a little bit of steals upside. So it's not really my favorite kind of stash because threes are just readily available on the waiver wire. I think the upside play is Filipowski, but just because he can give you like a diverse stat line, which is good for points leagues, obviously. But what are they going to do with Walker Kessler, John Collins? But yeah, I think Filipowski, I think, is my preferred stash between like him and Sensabaugh.
All right, we'll do a few more here. Got some good questions continuing to roll in. Tyus Jones, is he a drop in a 10-man, assume 10-team league?
Yeah, I'm not married to rostering Tyus Jones. It's just there's no upside. There's no upside. I mean, what it would take for Tyus Jones to be a guaranteed like top 80 player would be like devastating injuries to Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal all at the same time.
At least one. I mean, he's played better of late, which I think is why this question is a little more prescient. But of course, like we said, Beal's missed time. Durant's missed a few games. Right. Yeah. I mean, I thought the assists would be more dependable. They just haven't. Yeah. Every now and then he'll have like 9-10 assists, but Booker being the passer that he is has kind of stifled that. Steals haven't really been there. I was pounding the table to take Tyus Jones at like pick 115. That it just hasn't gone well.
I mean, if you picked him at 115, you didn't like lose that pick. It's just the upside didn't pan out. But you got a player worth 115.
All right, we're getting in the mud here. Daniel asks, would you drop Diabate and or D'Lo for Kaishan George or Nick Smith? 10-team head-to-head 9-cat league, and they use assist to turnover ratio instead of just turnovers.
Interesting. Yeah, Keyshawn George, another guy in Washington who his offense is just it's just really inconsistent. It's hard for me to ignore like what he's doing steals and blocks wise, but it's going to be really spotty. But so is Diabate and D'Lo. Those guys are putting up spotty games every single night. And Diabate, again, now the Hornets not only have Mark Williams back, and we don't know how that's going to go. They also have Yusuf Nurkic, and we don't know how that's going to go. And Diabate is mostly just rebounds anyway. And Nick Smith, I mean, he's fine, right? But he's again mostly just like a points and threes guy. So it's all right to add him, but I don't. And he's hot right now, right? Yeah. He's 21 points a game across his past 4, but he's shooting 54% from 3, which is not real. So yeah, it's tough.
He's a little Jordan Clarkson-y. There's no question about that. It really is just the points and threes. All right, we got a couple more here. Do you foresee Jonathan Kuminga thriving alongside Jimmy Butler? Does he start when he returns?
This is a really good question. Like I feel like, you know, there was so much talk about Butler going to Golden State and Golden State struggles, and it's just like it's completely easy to forget that Kuminga has just been out. You know, and he was playing some of the best basketball, at least of the season, if not his career, for like the 5 games before he got hurt. Do I foresee him thriving? Their spacing is still an issue, and I think part of what was leading to Kuminga playing well was the Warriors were just like, look, somebody on this team has to finish a play. Like, we can't just run around in circles and hand the ball off to each other and make a bunch of like backdoor cuts into traffic. Someone actually has to put the ball in the basket at the end of the 24-second shot clock. And I think they were just giving it to Kuminga at points and being like, we'll get you downhill and just send you and see what happens. And I do wonder, you know, is that guy going to be Jimmy Butler now? So my short answer is like, I would not expect him to play better than what he is averaging across the whole season. I don't think you can expect that.
All right, 2 more. I got 2 picked out here. Would you trade Giannis and Mark Williams for Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum, and Jalen Duren in a points league?
Yes.
I think I would do this. Yeah. No question about it.
You're just adding up points. You know what I mean? Those guys are good. 3 guys for 2.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think I might rather have Duren than Williams, just given the concerns that we laid out earlier in the pod. And then, you know, Edwards plus Tatum. Yeah, you're giving up the best player in Giannis, but yeah, do this trade if it's on the table for you. All right, we'll end on this. Keep rolling with Trey Murphy or try to flip him in case the Pels shut it down. Very good question. Murphy's been playing really, really well. Really, I mean, borderline all-star level. He was never had a chance to make the all-star game given where the Pels are, but he has been incredible. No Brandon Ingram, no DeJounte Murray. CJ McCollum is out currently. That's the question of our time, Alex. Will Trey Murphy be shut down?
Man, I did not realize he ranks 22 in full season 8 cat.
Yeah.
Man.
Dude, it's nuts.
They should have traded Zion, build around Trey. This is a good question because they're so bad. It has not seemed to matter who's available for them. They just lose games.
Yeah.
They're 12-40. And throughout that time, it's been, well, Zion's been back. And then, you know, even when Ingram it doesn't matter. They just lose. So I would maybe not be that concerned about Murphy, but if someone wants to give you back a guaranteed top 20 player that you're pretty confident would play out the rest of the season, I would not be afraid to do that. Because I don't think it's like going up from here. Like, I think the downside risk is probably more than the upside risk right now.
Since he came back from missing 3 games in early January, 26 points, 6 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 1.4 steals, 0.8 blocks, 52, 42, 87 shooting splits. That's a 13 game span. And if you take it back even further, you know, you can look at like basically his last 25 games, like still shooting 50, 42, 89. I mean, it's It's crazy. It really comes down to the shutdown risk. And I will say, I mean, like you said, the Pelicans have been so bad that, they're a good 4-5 games clear of, falling out of that bottom four. Toronto is the biggest threat right now. They have 16 wins, and you got Brooklyn at 18. Portland has played so well lately that they've probably played their way out of this. I mean, they're like 11 games, better in the win column right now. So I think there's a world in which the Pelicans could just keep doing what they're doing, keep losing, and it's not going to matter, and they'll be in the bottom four. So, like you said, I think unless somebody's offering you a legit top 20, top 25, maybe even top 30 guy who has no rest concerns, then I would think about it just to kind of ease the thought in the back of your mind. But I don't know, for whatever reason, I think partially because the Pelicans didn't plan on being in this spot. The Jazz knew they were going to be resting guys game 35 coming into the year. I don't think the Pelicans necessarily think that way. The roster's not designed that way. So I think you're okay here. But again, like Alex said, if somebody's giving you, I can't even come up with a name.
Like Donovan Mitchell, Sabonis, guys like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get anybody like that, I would do it. But if not, I mean, you've got one of the best values of the season, so I would keep riding this thing out. All right, good stuff as always, guys. Really appreciate everybody chiming in the chat, everybody commenting on the YouTube. Very much appreciate all that. You can find all of our podcasts 4 per week. We'll be doing it all season right here on the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball YouTube channel. Give us a like. Please make sure you're subscribed as well. That really helps us out. And make sure you go check out Pool Genius, check out Edge Boost, the presenting sponsors of our pod. I'll be back tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Myself and Brandon Kravitz will be talking about shutdown concerns, maybe some more Trey Murphy talk, start previewing the All-Star game. And you can catch Alex and I tonight and Tuesday this week over on NBA Radio, the RotoWire NBA show, 7 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern.